Hey, Gwen,
Yes.
did you want to introduce people and then introduce me and then I'll just start the panel? Would that work? Or since you have more kind of like what's going on, or do you want me to do that?
Whatever would be easier for you, I'm happy to do. You just
Why
tell
don't
me. Well,
if you could do the introductions of people, since I've got kind of like a little bit notes, and if somebody comes in, you know who to look for
I
on that
sure
one,
will.
just for
Yeah.
smoothness.
Okay, sure will. All right, and I think we're at 6 here. All right. Dr. DeCruz, would you like to get us started this evening?
I sure will. Welcome, everyone. We're so glad you're able to join us. We're glad to get to know you and share the resources that we have at VSU for you. We have a great treat. We've got Provost Smith here to offer a welcome as well. Dr. Bob Smith is Provost and Vice President of Academic Affairs and has a few words to share with you. Dr. Smith.
Well, good afternoon. Can you see me? Am I on?
Yes.
You can, okay. So good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you to postgraduate study at Valdosta State University. Graduate study it's a really, really exciting time in your lives where you'll learn so much in such a short period of time. But the paradigm changes considerably from your undergraduate studies, and I just want to talk about that very briefly. So while as an undergraduate, a lot of the responsibility of learning is on the faculty, that shifts considerably when you start graduate study, where most of the responsibility for learning now goes to you as the student. And that's certainly true, but you have wonderful resources. Our incredible faculty are here to support you every step of the way. And I hope that you will take advantage of everything that brings with it. We know that you're going to do well and make us proud as you go on and graduate and go on to great things. So with that, welcome to VSU Graduate Study. I wish you the very best of luck for your studies in the next few years. And I look forward to meeting you at maybe a research symposium in just a year or so. So I'll turn it back to Dr. Cruz. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. I will introduce myself just briefly to you as well and tell you a little bit about the graduate school. I'm Dr. Becky DeCruz, and I'm the Associate Provost of Graduate Studies and Research. So you may see a number of emails from me from time to time. Some newsletters are coming. We want to make sure that you feel connected not only to VSU, but the graduate school and to each other. And so we do have a number of resources that we provide to all graduate students. Some of the resources include research travel funds. If you begin working with faculty and are invited to present your research at another institution or conference, you can apply through the graduate school for up to $500 travel funds. Student Government Association also is able to award up to $300. So there is support for your research in that way. If you'd like to present your research on campus, just like Dr. Smith alluded to a moment ago, we do have every year the Graduate Student Research Symposium. The next one is April 14th. And so we are encouraging all graduate students to start thinking about that now. There's both a poster session and a 3-minute thesis session. And they're both competitions. There's monetary awards. and we like to brag on you about that research. So we do love to share that with even our friends across the state and the Board of Regents. So keep that in mind. If you would, remember that April 14th symposium date. We'd love to share that with you and see your research. We have graduate writing supports for you as well. There's an English 8300 course if you're getting close to writing your thesis or dissertations. We've got both graduate students and doctoral students who are attending. That may be an option for you. In addition, we've got the Academic Resource Center that offers tutoring and writing resources if you find yourself needing a little more advanced work there. We've got resources for you on our website as well. A number of our support staff across campus has put together short videos of the resources available to you. Many of you are in online programs, and so our e-learning department has prepared a video that we have linked on our website in that little orientation button. If you want to check these out, IT services has a video, the library has a video for you there as well. So there's a number of resources that we have built into the website to help you. The last thing I would say is we also encourage all of our students to get involved across campus. I know you're in online programs, but there are multiple ways to meet other graduate students through VSU. One way is through SGA. We've got several positions for grad students to be represented through that legislative body. We also have the Association of Graduate Students. And you're going to meet Cordell Moats here in just a moment, who is the president of AGS and has many opportunities for your involvement virtually in that organization. By virtue of being a graduate student, you're automatically a member. So I would encourage you to take advantage of the opportunities presented through that organization available to you. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Cordell. Cordell, I believe you're online. Would you like to talk a few moments about the Association of Graduate Students?
Hi. Yeah, like Dr. DeCruz said, the AGS is a social outlet for graduate students. Just by being in grad school, you're a part of our organization. So we'd love to see as many people get involved as you can. We do plan on hosting as many events as we can, either online, like virtual events, or at least hybrid events. So even if you're in an online program, not in the Valdosta area, you can still attend some of our events, or most, if not all of our events that we have planned this semester. And so we'll be sending out information about that, both by both. But we'll be sending out information about all of our events. We're planning this semester to do a series of guest speaking events at our general meetings, get faculty and staff from across the VSU campus to come and talk to our students, share experiences, professional skills, building tips and advice that may be of benefit to everybody. And we also have a GroupMe set up for all of our students to be able to talk to each other, collaborate. That's also another way you can see what we have coming up. And I'm going to try to share my screen real quick to show. Can you guys see my slide right now? Hello?
Yes.
It's working? Cool, thank you. So you can scan the QR code here if you'd like to join the GroupMe. Get a chance to kind of talk to some other grad students. And then you also I also have the contact information for the exec team. So if you have any questions, you can always email me. or anybody on the exec team about AGS, upcoming events, ways to get involved. So that's just a great little social and professional development outlet that we like to provide to all of our students, or at least as many as we can. Something I wish I had gotten involved in a little bit earlier. So do come by and attend virtually if you have to. If we have something in person and you're in the Valdosta area, you can come to that as well. We'd like to see as many people get involved as we got. So thank you all for tuning in. Let me plug the student org for a little bit.
Thank you, Cordell. Appreciate that. So now I would like to introduce our MC for you to begin kicking off some of the Q&A session of the program. So we've got Dr. David Nelson, who's Associate Provost, excuse me, Associate Professor in the Communication Arts Department. He's also the Graduate Program Coordinator of the Master of Arts in Communication. And very entertaining and a great MC. And this is probably his like third or fourth time doing this for us. So welcome, Dr. David Nelson.
Thank you. Apparently I got a promotion. I'm gonna have to go to more meetings now.
I know. Switch with you.
All right. Hey, thank you so much. And I do have to say, Cordell is right. Like, even though you're online, there's a lot of opportunities, including participating in the grad symposium. And those are good resume builders and other networking opportunities. So even though you're in the online environment and these programs are great at getting y'all involved in stuff, please take advantage of these resources that you're paying for, because that's why we're bringing them for you. Enough of me. You're here to listen to what other people who are in online programs. And there are going to be times there'll be questions here. Post them up in the chat. I will do my best. Gwen, help me out moderating that stuff. If you have questions, pop them up in the chat, because we do want questions from you as well. So when I get into the first question, panelist, and introduce yourself, provide what program you're in, and maybe share a fun fact of some sort with your audience here as we get going here. All right. Question number one, I'm going to go off here, is getting into grad school. Before you, I guess, think about how to phrase this again. What are some misconceptions you had going into grad school that you realized maybe you got a little wrong? Yeah, go ahead, Phoenix.
Okay, you said introduce myself and then answer?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hello everybody. My name is Phoenix Culbertson. I am a graduate student. Specifically, I'm in the Doctor of Public Administration program. I am currently ABD, so I have completed all my coursework in capstone and portfolio. Just working on my dissertation right now. And one interesting thing about me is I've been in Valdosta State as an undergraduate student, as a graduate student, as well as staff. So I have a kind of well-rounded perspective of what it is to be a Blazer in different capacities. And so to answer the question, my biggest misconception was that I would have it all figured out at the very beginning, specifically those coming up with like thesis topics or dissertation topics. We are encouraged to, if you identify a topic at the very beginning, try to focus your areas of study on that. But sometimes you really don't know yet until you start to research and dig into different areas. And I've only known what my finalized topic is for a year, and I've been in the program for 3 years, going on 4. So it's okay that you won't know everything in the beginning, even though you feel like you should know what your topic is, so you can start researching and writing about that for class assignments. But the reality of the situation is you really don't know till you know, and you only know when you do the research and really dive in and you kind of see what's there. So that is what my piece of advice I would share for the biggest misconception I had.
Phoenix, I got a follow up on that. How has it expanded? What was the aha moment you had when you realized that?
Well, my topic changed about 5 times. It went from crime lab, this is all over the place, y'all. It went from crime labs to COVID and the regulations of COVID based on political partisanship. And then it shifted to some other things. And then finally it landed on using virtual reality to provide job interview skill development to students. And the aha moment was that I was trying to work harder, not smarter. And so because I am a working professional, it would behoove me to find a way to integrate what I do in my career with my research so that I'm not in two different lanes, but I can kind of combine what I'm researching with the practical experience, which is what I do in my role. So because I work in career services, my research is related to career services. So it allows me to just advance myself as both a practitioner, but also as a researcher, and to become academia within higher education and within career services. So just finding a way where it just blends the two and it just fit. And my topic was actually just an idea thrown out by my chair, which is Dr. Bobby Tickner. She's a criminal justice professor and the virtual reality lab director in Oldham Library at VSU. And so she threw the idea, was like, what if you use VR for job interviewing? And I was like, oh my gosh, that's it. That's the topic. And since then, we focused in on like theories and, the methods and all that good stuff, like how I'm going to effectuate it. But that was the moment, Dr. Nelson, when I realized that I could combine what I do with what I'm studying.
Excellent. Cool. Who else on the panel? David, I see you there.
Yeah, so I'm Dave Lackley. Good evening, everybody. I'm on the public service faculty at the University of Georgia, where I work for the Carl Vinson Institute of Government. My primary job is training people who work in and around government on financial topics. I come to that without any educational background in teaching. I came as a subject matter expert who decided to teach. And so that kind of led me to this program that I'm in. I'm working on the EDD and adult education here. My research interests are in public sector training programs. I'm, I guess, in year 3. I hope to wrap up coursework next summer and start the fun part, right? Working on the dissertation. I guess something interesting, sort of interesting, is I'm kind of the all over Georgia guy. I work for University of Georgia that's based in Athens, but I live in Peachtree City, which is 100 miles away from there. My office is actually based in Atlanta. I spent a lot of time driving to the coast to do various trainings down in Savannah and Jekyll Island. So I spent a lot of time all over our great state. To the question about misconceptions, I guess maybe one of the biggest surprises for me was I expected most of my classmates to kind of have similar backgrounds and career goals as me, and it's really, at least in my program, very varied. We have lots of people in different types of careers. Depending on the course I'm in, we may have a group that's kind of clustered around one specific area, but another class end up with a bunch of different folks in that class. People who are maybe kind of like me and will be charitable, say mid-career, right? But people who are also, kind of on the early end of the career, working on doctoral studies young. So I found that very interesting and really helpful to kind of draw on a lot of those different experiences and different backgrounds as we work through our studies.
I have a follow-up question for you, Dave, and I think coming in as a non-traditional student into the program, you kind of sometimes feel like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be in this program. You kind of mentioned you thought it would be young people and all different people, and I hear this from non-traditional students. Is like, I'm just going to be a duck out of water. What I'm trying to get at is like, how did your previous experience help you prepare you for grad school and maybe make you a better student now than maybe you were when you better than when you were like an undergrad umpteenth years ago?
Well, I mean, that would mean I'd have to be able to remember that long ago. So I'd have to try, but no, I think really it comes down to organization and prioritization. I think that I'm kind of looking ahead at some of the questions. Those are some pretty key themes. I think as a 20, even 25, 30-year-old, I don't think I would have had the same capacity to organize so many different things. I think probably everybody who's here watching has lots of different things you're going to have to be juggling between work and school and life. And so kind of just having the different experience to know what kind of organization that's going to take, I think has been pretty key to being able to move through the program.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Is Pam here? Pamela Dean?
Yes, that's me. Figuring out how to unmute my mic.
No worries.
I'm Pam. I am a full-time language arts teacher. I teach high schoolers. And so I've been in the classroom the entire time that I have been doing my program. And I'm in the Master of Arts in English Studies for Language Arts Teachers program. It's a tongue twister. I think my biggest misconception, which might have just been misinformation on my part, was a little bit that I thought that it was going to be a lot like undergrad and that I was just going to breeze through it. But it has been illuminating in that it has been challenging, but I've also been able to focus and like incorporate my experiences in the classroom with what I'm learning in the program, which I couldn't do in undergrad because I was just a clueless English major. So it's been really helpful doing it while also in the classroom and teaching, so I can combine my career and school.
How long did it take you, Pam, to kind of get your mojo and figure out your rhythm once you kind of realized this is grad school, not undergrad?
My first semester was over the summer, so that was not a good picture of what it was going to be like, but probably after the fall semester, learning how to navigate life and work and school at the same time.
And I think a lot of students go, I mean, that's the one thing I tell my students, it takes you probably about a half a semester. And some of those you experienced veterans figure that out. It's like, and then you get into it. I don't know, is Yolanda on? I don't see if she came on or not. I don't want to include her.
I'm here.
You're here, Yolanda?
I am.
Okay. How introduce yourself and what are some misconceptions you maybe had about graduate school?
I'm Yolanda Crosby, and I have worked at an academic library for the last 22 years. I'm in the MLIS program at VSU, and I thought that I knew everything there was to know about libraries after being in here this long. Sadly, I do not know as much as I thought I did, but I'm learning. So that was my misconception. I really thought that I would just improve on what I already know. And I'm learning so much more than I had no idea there was that much more to learn. But I'm enjoying the classes. And it took me, like several of the others have talked on, my first semester started in spring. I'm in my third semester now. My first semester was spring, and it didn't go so well because juggling everything between home, a full-time job, a part-time job, and grad school is a lot. So if I can give you any advice on that, would be to plan well and keep an exceptional calendar of dates and alarms on your cell phone days in advance to let you know when things are coming up.
So what's one of the key things you've discovered about being organized as you've gone through this process?
Makes life much easier and class runs much more smoother. Grades are better. Not that my grades were extremely bad the first semester, but not where I'm normally at in my undergrad classes. So organized, I was, things ran a lot smoother. My grades improved over the summer, and it definitely helped.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. One question, and whoever wants to take it, just take it, is where do you think, and we kind of touched on this a little bit, where do you think individuals need to start to get on the right foot? Particularly in an online environment, which is different than face-to-face, which we've all learned.
I'll start off, and if anybody wants to, jump in and add on to anything I say, I would say, and this is going to sound real simple, but it really starts with the class syllabus. The syllabus has almost everything you need to know, especially at VSU and especially in the online programs. I've seen some of their syllabi, and they're pretty consistent throughout, especially with the online college, depending on what program you're in. But nonetheless, what I always tell even my peers and students that I work with is it is one thing to have a physical planner, which is great. When you write in, mark it off, highlight it, that's great. But it's another thing to actually put it in your Outlook calendar, which is linked to your phone, because you might not always have your written planner with you, but most likely you'll always have your phone. And so if you put those dates in your Outlook, like the dates that our assignments are due, the date of exams, all that good stuff, you really have no excuse to, forget it because it's written down, it's in your phone or in your computer, which you usually have accessible. You can set reminders like remind me 2 days before it's due or something like that. And this is something I have done since undergrad, and it's worked for me, especially if you're balancing a lot. It's not reasonable to expect everybody to remember everything that has to be done and just keep it in their brain and not miss anything. And so by doing that, that's a great place to start because then this is what needs to be done. This is when it needs to be done. Now, how can I go in and do it?
Thank you, Phoenix.
If I could just add on that a little bit for folks who have other people with a vested interest in your schedule. I don't use Outlook, but my family uses Google, and I've got that calendar shared with the whole family. So not only do I know I've got an assignment coming up and I've blocked off this time on Sunday to work on it, my family knows, right? That doesn't make it easy, right? That doesn't mean sometimes I'll put something on that calendar and I'll get are you sure that you can do that time? But it helps everybody be on the same page there.
Thank you, Dave. Pam or Yolanda?
I just want to reiterate what both of those gentlemen have said. It's, like I said, putting it on my phone made a big difference. I didn't do that in the beginning of the semester, spring semester when I started, and halfway the semester I realized how much I really needed to do that. Juggling everything, when you think you've got time, things come up, things happen. Computer goes down is hardly anything compared to family situations, work situations, and I commend anyone who's trying to work a full-time job and go to school. If you don't, you have maybe a little more time on your hands, but just be prepared because it'll catch up with you soon. Put it on your calendar, write it down, put it on your phone, anything that's going to help you get more organized.
Pam, anything you'd like to add?
I'm a little bit different from these guys in that I don't really use calendar, Outlook, or Google. But the first thing I agree, like going through your syllabus and making sure you're super familiar with that was always my first step. I actually made a spreadsheet at the beginning of every semester so I could, like, if I was taking multiple classes, I could put all the dates together in one. And I like the little checkbox feature that Google has, so I could check and it would strike through as I completed stuff. And I don't know, it just makes me feel really accomplished when I check things off of a physical list. But definitely looking over the syllabus, putting all the dates in one place so then you can kind of map out where your busiest times are and you can go ahead and plan ahead for those in any assignments that fall during that time.
So it seems like everybody's advice is find an organizational system works, whether it's a Google, a spreadsheet, a phone thinger, app, whatever they're calling them these days, or electronic database, old school. So the key to organization and winning is the grad school is what I'm hearing for that, which is, I think you guys sound like the wisdom I wish I would have had as an undergraduate 150 years ago with the same along with David it's a while back. So, but I think that makes you better in the long run as these experiences when we make these mistakes. Anyway, enough of me. What next question for y'all is what's some of the best advice you have received so far as a grad student, maybe from a mentor, a teacher, an advisor, something that's really stuck with you?
Mine's is very simple. It came from Dr. Tickner, who is my dissertation chair as well as my mentor. She says it to me all the time, which is just get it done. There's plenty of reasons, plenty of life circumstances that happen, plenty of things that sometimes are out of our control. But at the end of the day, sometimes you really just got to get it done and just make it happen, even when it feels like you can't.
I'll go next.
Yep.
Going back to my first semester when I was struggling, I reached out to a couple of people that was in my classes and had what I felt like not a successful attempt on my part to maybe reach out to enough people or other individuals. So at the end, I reached out to Dr. D. Juilliard, and she gave me some awesome advice. You can't help things that are happening in your life. You can't help that things that are happening at work, and it's going to consume your time. If you see that you are struggling, talk to the professors. They're people just like we are. They've been through programs like this. They've had struggles as well. They are very understanding. So the best advice that I received was to reach out and communicate, because no one else knows if you don't tell them.
Get one of these, carry it around everywhere. If you're on the phone and don't see, I'm just holding up my APA manual. That was my first semester. I thought, I will admit, I kind of initially thought I can use the OWL site, the Purdue site, whatever. There's other different sites where you can look at that stuff, but I do find that having this book makes it much easier to make sure on the right page with APA.
Were you gonna say something? You're muted right there, Pam.
No, I was just thinking, but I also agree with Yolanda that professors are people. I have always been like, for some reason, afraid of reaching out or like asking for extensions or anything because of circumstances usually beyond my control. But all of my professors have been wonderful and awesome, and definitely just talk like people.
Were you surprised we were people, Pam?
No, yes and no.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Um, kind of along that line too. Think about is how do you view the role the faculty plays in your mentorship and in your growth here at VSU, and how have they got you to where you're at, and hopefully kind of get you to where you want to be?
I will say in my program, I'm in the DPA program, aside from Dr. Tickner, who has been a very crucial faculty member since I've been an undergraduate student about 8 years ago. So, but in addition to her, in the DPA program, we have some very, our professors, not that they don't care in other programs, but just from my experience in the DPA program, we have very good faculty, and they really care not only about that you learn the information, but that you actually learn how it works in practice and how to practice it and utilize what you're learning. So it's not just knowledge based, but it's something that can be done practically, especially when you're already working full time in a program. Dr. Merwin and Dr. Lee, they're always reaching out to the DPA and MPA students. And Dr. Lee is always sharing career opportunities and employment opportunities that would fit the DPA and MPA students. And I think that's really strong and encouraging, because it allows the students to see, even if they're not interested in that opportunity, the types of opportunities that might be fitting that employers are looking for from MPA and DPA students.
What about Yolanda, Pam, or Dave?
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I'd say is not every, and maybe I'm going off the script a little bit, but maybe not every faculty member is created equally, right? So you're going to have to do a little bit of work to find out who your best allies are, right? I've got certain professors that I really lean on and rely on, who I know when I send them an email, I'm going to get a response right away. And I know that maybe their research interests maybe don't perfectly align with mine, but they're aligned enough with mine that I feel like I can get good feedback on questions. And I've developed some really, I think, great relationships with some of the faculty here.
I think I'm going to jump into it. You do create relationships with certain faculties, and that's because your research area. And again, that's not because the other faculties don't care. That's just part of it. You have a different relationship with the faculty, those at the graduate level than at the undergraduate level. Like I could tell war stories about my dissertation and thesis advisors, and it's been years since I graduated. I still text and message my advisor. I just asked him to write a review for a book chapter, and he's like, "Buddy, I'm in California on vacation, but if you needed to do it." So I'm thankful that I can, even though he's on vacation, I didn't ask him to do. He was on vacation, by the way. I'm not that rude, but like to be able to have the relationship, to be able to ask for those favors, even though he's been retired for a few years. So I feel these are really super important relationships that you will use as references, and you'll hopefully come back and use these people down the road. Enough of me. Pam or Yolanda, what are your thoughts?
I'm still early in the program, and since I did not take my undergrad classes at VSU, I'm still learning a few of the faculty, but so far the ones that I have had in my classes have been exceptional. Like I said, I reached out to a few of them, got really good response back. Have had some that has worked with me through some very difficult times in the first couple of semesters, but couldn't say anything bad about any of them.
I would just add to that an online program does make it a little bit different in forming relationships with faculty, because in undergrad, you could just go to in-person office hours if you were in person and not online, and put a face to a name. So you do have to go a little bit out of your way sometimes on your end to make those connections, and ask questions and send emails, since you don't actually necessarily see them every week.
Fair enough. Next question on here. What kind of bounce off some of we talked about earlier on the misconceptions and then the organization. How do you balance all that? How do you handle that school life thing? As many of you have jobs and you're going to school and you've got families.
I will say I don't want to call this a luxury. To me, it's a luxury because I'm not ready yet. To others, to each his own. But I'm single and I have no children. So because of that, the types of responsibilities of a person being dependent upon me is not that it would be for somebody that's married or has children or a partner or something like that. But at one point in my doctoral program, I was actually working 5 jobs at one time, which I know it sounds insane. But I had one full-time job, which was VSU, and 4 part-time jobs. And so during that time of my life, I worked about 80 hours a week, from dusk to dawn, every day of the week, no break, straight through. And so what I learned from that is, one, don't put that much pressure on yourself because it was insanely overwhelming. And I hope I never have to experience something like that again. And I always say, I always wish I could have one job that paid what those 5 jobs did collectively. So I wouldn't have had to work 5 jobs. I would if I only had to work one. So just don't overwhelm yourself. And something somebody shared with me, these are some good words of wisdom. Sandra YG Jones, she's the director of student diversity and inclusion. One time she told me it's better to do a few things in excellence than to do a lot of things in mediocrity. And so focus on those few things that you want to be excellent at, instead of trying to put your hands in every single thing and do too much at one time, that it becomes overwhelming and counterproductive.
And that's really hard, right? I mean, that I wish I could sit here and tell you, oh, once you get your feet under you, that's going to be easy. It's not easy, right? You have to say no to stuff. And I think that's been kind of the biggest thing is, that I can't do this family gathering. I can't do this thing. You're going to have to make choices. And I wish I could say that that's easy. It's not, right? And so again, I think it goes back to trying to be as organized as far in advance as you can be, right? Knowing kind of, not just what do I need to do the next 2 weeks to keep my head above water, but what do I need to do the next 8 weeks, the next 15 weeks, and where's that all going to lay out so that I can know, because you can't turn everything off permanently, right? You can, like sometimes I can hit the snooze on my family and my wife picks up a lot of slack, but this, the alarm goes off again. So you have to come back to that. But again, I think figuring out how and when to say no is going to be important.
And the other thing is, go ahead, Pam.
Another thing that's been really big for me recently as I'm preparing for my comprehensive exams is like finding those little pockets of time that are like dead space or like transition that you can pull out something to read or maybe knock out a discussion post. Like right now, my students read the first 10 minutes of class on certain days, and that is the time that I pull out a journal article, and I read that instead of a novel like I would love to. But finding those moments or like getting somewhere early and sit in the car for a few minutes and do some reading, that has made a big difference, and chipping away at little pieces of assignments.
Pam took my idea. Actually, no, that's exactly what I had to do. I had to find time in between jobs and work. I made myself get up an hour earlier every morning during the summer. Didn't get to spend as much time with friends and on the beach as I liked this summer, but you have to set your priority, and right now your priority is school. So finding that extra time, 30 minutes here, an hour there, makes the largest portion of your day just easier planned, and definitely the assignments go by. You find yourself with that extra hour or that extra 30 minutes a little bit more ahead of the game on that assignment than what you normally would if you would just, if you waited to the last minute or only had, your set aside 3 hours in the day. Don't think that you only have to set aside a certain amount of time every day. Take it, as often as you can throughout the day to catch up on your reading. Like she said, do discussion. I caught myself reading my discussion post before I car in the mornings because I have over a 30-minute drive to work, and I would speak it into my phone and let it text talk to text, so that when I got to work, I could take that note and email it to myself, edit it, and then I had my discussion post ready for the day. So little things that you can do in your spare time to help is really beneficial.
I've been asking all the questions. I don't know if anybody in the audience has a question you'd like to ask the panels. You want to type it in the chat there, I could go from that. I'm going to create the awkward pause and embrace it. Wait to see if someone's going to be brave enough to do that in there. I don't know. While we're thinking of panelists, do you have a question for the panel?
I have a question for Yolanda.
Whoever that is, knock her out, man.
Sure.
I am in my first semester of MLIS also. And I guess my first question is I wanted to ask, do you have any organizational tips for foundations that you haven't mentioned already?
My first semester, like I said, was a struggle, but what I found is that if you have the capability to print everything, it helps. I printed everything. I kept it in a folder. I tried to organize it the best I could in that folder by dates that it was due. And then there's some things, of course, that's going to come easier to you than others. Those that you think you may struggle on more, or that you see that you may have more trouble with, definitely spend more time trying to put a red flag on it, so that when you open that folder, that red flag's sticking out there, and you know that you've got to devote more time to that than others. So color coordination was working for me. Sticky notes. If I thought that I might forget something, I would jot it down on a sticky note and either stick it to my purse, or I would wrap it around my purse strap and tape it so it couldn't come off. Anything that's going to help you stay focused on completing tasks. That was my largest struggle with everything that I was trying to juggle, too much that I was trying to juggle in the first semester. In my undergrad, I never had to devote that much time to a class, and it was a cultural shock when I started. So time, devotion, and organization really set me back. But color coordination, notebook, print everything, print that syllabus, mark it off. Like Pam was saying, she did a spreadsheet. I didn't do a spreadsheet, but to me, if it's in the syllabus and there's a list of assignments and I got it completed, mark it off. If it was one that I thought I needed to do progressional, meaning that it starts maybe in the first week, but it's not due till the last week, highlight. You highlight as you complete each section, or highlight, if there's 3 parts to it, you do part 1, 2, and then at the end of the semester, part 3's, the completed part's finished. Then highlight those parts as you get done. Anything that's going to help you stay on track. What's worked for a lot of people in undergrad doesn't necessarily work in grad because it's different. It's a different environment. It's a different structure. So just use your organizational skills wisely and maybe focus on new skills that you maybe didn't know or have never tried that may help. And reach out to others and say, what are you doing to stay focused? I can't seem to keep up with everything that's going on.
Did you have a follow-up question on that?
No, that was good for me. I guess I technically, I kind of have a follow-up question, and for it's, do you think it's helpful to read ahead as far as all of the reading and foundations, or do you feel like it's a distraction to get too far ahead?
Most of your professors will not open up your next module until the first complete. So when that module opens up on the day that it opens, yeah, ahead. You're going to need everything that's in that module to take to prepare for your work for that module. As soon as as soon as you've completed module 1 and module 2 opens up that following week, go ahead and start with that as well because they build.
And I just want to add to that, I guess maybe for all other programs too. I have found I never regret reading something early, right? So I try to buy my textbooks the second that I can get them, and I read those. I have that in the bag because you were going to have so much reading assigned, you're not even going to know. And I also want to just add to something that Yolanda said made me think too. I think in undergrad, we kind of have a mentality of once the class is done, okay, flush that one and move on to the next. All your grad work is going to build, and so your organization has to carry class to class to class. Like I'm 4 semesters down the road, I'm like, oh, who wrote that article? And Dr. Gwen probably knows because one day I emailed her. I was like, I read this article and it had this thing about this stuff, and the framework looked like this. Who was it, right? So you're going to be going back to your material in a way. I think that maybe you did a little bit towards the end of undergrad, but really in a way that's much more intense. And so the better you get that long-term organization, the easier that's going to be.
A good way to do that, back to what David was saying, is I keep on my computer, I have a folder that says VSU, but within that folder is each one of my classes. If it's MLIS 7000, 7210, whichever one it is, and everything that I post in a discussion, I put in a Word document. Everything that I download that's readable, I put back in there. So if anytime, like he said, I have a memory that I need to go back and find a reading or find an article, everything is in that folder. I may have to go through 2 or 3 folders to find it, but at least I still have that information and I can download it, or not download it, but reopen it.
And I will add on that, I have both electronic and physical, like libraries, if you will, of my work and everything. The good thing about the digital, though, is when you need to find something, one, you could Control F and quickly find something you're looking for based on a keyword, a person, the piece that you do remember, which in physical library is a little more difficult because you gotta flip through unless there's like an index or something. So I learned that those digital things, even in your file explorer, you can search within the files that are within that folder. And if you've saved everything, it might quickly help you identify an article or author or something that you've done similar that you want to refer back to. So I do exactly what she does in terms of having I use it on my thumb drive though, so it's with me everywhere I go. But each class has a folder and you just keep it for your entire program because a lot of programs will have final portfolios or something. And if you already have everything, it makes it so much easier. My portfolio for my DPA was 100+ pages, and it would have been so difficult to culminate that if I had to find everything and look for it, but it already was in one place. I had it saved and I could easily identify it. So that is very, very important to keep all that information because it will come up at some point. And even if it doesn't, at least you have it. This is like your wealth of knowledge that you've culminated. And so you should take pride in that and, keep it. So whenever you got to go back to it.
Create backups. I'm going to add to that because stuff happens when you least expect it and you freak out when you can't find stuff, particularly if your computer dies or something like that. So create multiple backups. So email it to your Google Drive, things of that. I mean, so having that happen here's a horror story. A friend of mine I've known for years and years, when he was leaving Penn State to go to his job, he was moving, his U-Haul caught fire and lost his whole dissertation. He was ABD at the time and had to start from scratch. So, and so when he tells that story, even it's been over 20 years, I just still cringe every time I hear that. So create backups. Don't be a John Saunders. I love the guy. He's a great friend, but man, it still makes me feel like, oh my God, I would have lost my stuff. So he'd back stuff up.
Yeah, that's really good. I do have I have my thumb drive and then I have a backup bigger hard drive that I periodically go back and add things to. So in the event that something happens, I don't lose the stuff that's most important to me. Because had that happened to me, I don't even know that I would want to regain from that and finish. I would probably be ABD for the rest of my life.
Somebody else have a question you'd like to ask the panel? If you do, I'm going to ask y'all questions because we're kind of winding down here as we get to the 7 o'clock hour. On this one is, what do you have in your grad school survival kit?
Grammarly. If you do not have Grammarly, I don't know how faculty feel about Grammarly. But I'm going to be honest, I pay for the professional Grammarly. They do a great job. They don't create or develop your work. They just proofread it in the same way that if you got a classmate to proofread something or something like that. I put everything in Grammarly, email, discussion, sometimes even text messages that I want to come off really good. I put it in Grammarly. And Grammarly is not that expensive for a yearly subscription if you're a student. And once I got Grammarly, I thought I was like a really good writer. And then Grammarly was like, yeah, you're all right, but I'm way, way better. So if you don't have Grammarly, they have a free version, but it doesn't allow you to do what, it's just limited, right? You can't put as many words in there. They might limit how many times a day you can use it. But Grammarly is very, very, and they don't only fix it, but they tell you the reasons behind it, like why this is a grammatical issue, why this is punctuation is incorrectly, or they'll just offer suggestions and allow you to pick from a list of what they think might make it sound better, as opposed to just doing it and you not understanding, okay, why was that change necessary? So when you start to write, you get better because you're learning as they revise it what you were doing wrong and how you were doing it wrong. So Grammarly is in my survival kit.
I use something called Citation Machine. I know there are other things out there, right, that are maybe better, but that's the one I'm comfortable with. But something that will help you with your citation writing, but never trust those, right? Always, always double check. And then another thing that I was late to the game on, I guess, I started in 2020 and everything was pretty chaotic, and so I feel sometimes a little bit behind the game. But I've really started working on my annotated bibliography, right? It just is helping me keep all the sources that I'm finding now that I'm going to use in my dissertation, just helping me keep that organized.
Pam or Yolanda?
My APA handbook. is my Bible. I take that thing with me everywhere, and it's still not 100%. Sometimes every single thing that you need, you're going to come up on some really unique is a good word. Things that you need to cite, but use your best judgment with Al at Purdue. Citation machine I've used, but the APA handbook is literally, I bet I have 42 little tabs on it right now or more where I've needed to use it. So that I also have Grammarly that I like because it has, like he said, I thought I was a decent writer till you start putting it together and run it through there. And there's another one that I honestly cannot remember right off the top of my head. It's on my laptop at home, but you can copy and paste your whole entire essay in there and it will give you suggestions on your sentences, making sure that those sentences are in proper form and third party, things like that. But I honestly cannot remember it right now. I want to say it's called Hemingway, but I cannot remember. It's unique, but I like it.
I see some people are commenting about somebody had, and Dr. Nelson replied about getting the most current version. I was just curious when looking at that, when the newest APA manual was changed basically, which was 2019, which goes to show that these things is like constantly changing. And I wouldn't be surprised in future years if they make more updates to it, especially with the integration of technology and how that's going to impact the future. So I will be honest, I don't own the APA manual. I do use the online version of it. But in undergrad, I did have one. And the good thing about them is they're usually not super hefty. They're usually like not necessarily pocket size, but reasonable to carry around, right? It's not like a huge textbook that holds a lot of weight. So if you can get one, it does help because you can quickly, I've done 100 papers and sometimes I still forget how an article is cited versus how an online blog is cited. So I have to go back and remind myself. So it does help a lot, especially if you have a professor that grades heavily on APA formatting. Some will let some things bypass and just, let you know that it's wrong, but some will actually deduct points for not doing something right. Some of my professors did that, not out of a mean way, but just to teach you that those formatting and those citations and everything is very important, especially if you're preparing for a thesis or dissertation. So it's good to go ahead and learn how to do those things so it's easier when the weight is a little more on what you have to do.
And the reason why Venus, I said get the most current version, is my horror story. Is I got caught between editions when I was sending my dissertation to my graduate reader. And that was a whole day I spent going from one edition to the next edition. So don't be that person. Learn from my like, oh, they'll let it slide. They didn't let it slide. So it worked out, but it was just a long day on there. I guess to kind of wind up the last question here for you, so we can end up at 7 o'clock. Is that all right, Gwen?
Hi, Dr. Nelson. I think we go till 7:30, actually.
All right. Cool. I guess my time is okay. So I'm going to jump back. What's to the panel? What's the best experience you've had so far in grad school?
I would say becoming ABD. Once you're at ABD, it's just like you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, even though the tunnel is long and arduous and has a lot of challenges and potential roadblocks and things like that. But once you get all your classwork done for those that are in doctoral programs, you really I'm sorry, Christina, ABD means all but dissertation. So it means you've done all the coursework to fulfill your dissertation, your doctoral program requirements, but you still have to write and defend your dissertation. That was my highlight of my graduate thing because it was like a milestone. Like, okay, I've done all the coursework that's needed in the final capstone and portfolio and everything. So now let me just write this really, really, really long literary work that's going to be impactful for research and add on to what doesn't already exist. So that would be my biggest highlight.
So I think like people like the ABD, some master's programs, depending on what you're in, may have a thesis or you may have a comps or you may have a project. So it varies depending on program to program, but most, I would say all doctorate programs, you have to write a dissertation.
So my best experience was a real surprise to me. Raise your hand if you get excited when the professor says we're going to do a group project. Right. So I came into this program not even in my master's program did not have good experience with group projects. But last semester I was taking a class called Diverse Populations in Adult and Career Education. The class was just 3 people, and so the professor assigned us, the 3 of us, to write a paper together. And the professor gave us pretty wide latitude to kind of choose topic, and so we were able to really kind of talk with each other, figure out what our interests were, devise a way to research something that would be useful to us and interesting to us. We were able to divide the work well, and we, at the end of the day, ended up with a paper that was way, way better than anything any one of us would have written alone. And it kind of, again, maybe shifted my view of how group work can be. We've all had experience with bad teams, right? And when you're in, I guess, this level of a program, go into that with maybe a more open mind, because more of us are here to work hard than maybe we were in your last go round. So go into those with a good open mind, and you can get some really good results.
I think mine has just been getting the opportunity to take classes that are outside of my comfort zone, maybe. Like for the MAISLAP program, creative writing is a required course. Everyone has to take a course in creative writing, and I actually ended up taking 2 because I loved Dr. Hall so much. But I'm not a writer, and I really don't like people reading what I write, so that stretched me a lot. And then the English 8300 course that was mentioned earlier, that was one of the last courses that I took for the program, and that also was something very outside of my wheelhouse and my comfort zone, but I learned so much through that.
Yolanda, any?
I think for me, it was similar to what Pam said, working outside of my comfort zone, because like I said, I thought I knew a lot about working in a library, but so much of the reading and research that I've had to do has just took me to places that I didn't know that my mind wanted to go. But the more I read it, the more intrigue came, and the more interesting, and it really improved my outlook on a lot of things. That has helped me in my assignments, especially my writing.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. What type of connections have you made in an online program? It's been mentioned it's difficult. It's a lot more work. Sometimes there's a lot of onus on you, the student, to reach out to people. But so what type of connections have you made by doing that? Whether with colleagues or within the program or even with faculty?
The discussion post for me has helped a lot. Like-minded people working together, talking together. Most of my classes have had a free chat discussion where we could go in there and ask each other questions. I think that helped a lot, because sometimes if I thought I wasn't for sure if I needed to ask the question, if I thought someone might think it was silly if I ask it, someone else would ask it before me, and we got to correspond with each other. Making those connections to your classmates is a must. They're in it with you. They're struggling just like you are, even though you think you're not. Some of the assignments has allowed me to reach out to other individuals in libraries that I do not have experience in. I've only ever worked in an academic library. So reaching out to the public sector for some assignments has broadened my perspective. But the discussion post, reading the individuals' assignments post and corresponding with them has really helped me.
Yolanda, that's, I think, such a key piece of advice, such great advice. I would just tell everybody, in an online program, every class you take is going to have some kind of discussion board-based assignment, right? If you're really new, you may not really even know what we're talking about yet, but you will soon. But you really, I would encourage you to take those very seriously. I think sometimes people treat them, and even sometimes the assignment treats it like this is a writing assignment more than it is a discussion. But really, that is your opportunity, right? When someone makes a post, don't just, say, yeah, me too, right? Or yeah, great post, right? Really read what they have to say. Try to give them some thoughtful feedback on what they have to say. Try to I don't want to use the word challenge, but you don't want to be the mean guy on the board, but you want to push people to think new things, right? And that's where you'll start to make those connections with the other students, which is what, again, I think the point of what we're doing here by taking classes together is, right? So I would, you're going to have requirements, right? This has to be 200 words. You have to cite a source, whatever, but really then make the discussion happen. Talk to your classmates. That's where you're going to find those people who share your research interests, who maybe are going to be someone you can rely on when the going gets tough and you need some moral support, right? I think that's the milling around in the hall of online, right? That's where you're going to talk to people and get to know them.
I just want to add, this might sound really basic, but some people struggle with not writing discussions, but knowing what to reply, like how to reply. How do I reply without just saying, I agree, I disagree? What I usually do is sometimes discussions can be really long, right? And you're not expected to respond to the entire specific discussion, but I'll hone in on something that sticks out to me that I feel like I can add on to or critique or challenge in some way, in a positive way. And that makes it easier to do a discussion response as opposed to reading the entire discussion and thinking you have to respond to every piece of the discussion that they included in their original post. Find something that relates or that sticks out to you or that you know about, or maybe you did something similar in your discussion and you can talk about how you supplement or build on to what they said. But find something, because some people really, I used to struggle with like, what do I respond? I agree. That's it. I agree, but you can't do that. You have to be able to add on to that body of knowledge because it's supposed to like imitate, if you will, classroom discussion, dialogue that you would have in the classroom, but you have it in an online format in a discussion board. So that's just a little trick that I use when I feel stuck in responding to other people, because it's usually not that hard to write the discussion, but figuring out what to respond can sometimes be challenging.
Yeah, I just want to read Samantha's chat. Scholarly conversation is more than just agreeing. Don't be afraid to challenge in a professional way, right? I think that maybe there's some reluctance because, there's issues of tone when you're typing versus talking, right? You may be worried about how something could come off, but as long as you're professional, and I think that that's the way we push each other.
Pam, Yolanda, anything you'd like to add? I know Yolanda did earlier. Pam.
Blazeview also has a feature where you can see your entire class list. So also if there's ever a question or someone says something in a discussion post, and I know some of my professors, you couldn't respond after a certain date. So even if I wanted to go back and say something I couldn't, you can also reach out to people in your class like individually through Blazeview messages. So you can chat about questions, or I've had lots of little freak out moments about projects with other people in the class. So if you are afraid or don't want to post on a public discussion board, or you can't access it anymore, that's also an option.
What are ways y'all in the online programs have started kind of networking? What are things you've done to reach out beyond the programming? Obviously, we've talked about the convention, not the face-to-face thing. You're not doing that, but networking still is a super important role while you're in school.
I would say LinkedIn. I actually have my LinkedIn profile in my signature. So a lot of times people will just have an email conversation and like, oh, here's this LinkedIn. Let me click on it. And then they click on it and they request to follow me, and you can build your LinkedIn network. And I work in career opportunities. So we're very big on teaching students how to network and how to maximize social professional networking, such as LinkedIn. So I think that's a great way to build your connections, because sometimes people have LinkedIn accounts, but they don't really know, who should I connect with? How do I build my connections? And it starts with like professors, classmates. You know, they work in different, you know, where a lot of us are full-time employees or part-time employees or work for some company. And so you never know how that might benefit you in the future, or just to keep in touch and see, you know, how they continue advancing their education and career. So LinkedIn is a great way to network. But it's more than just building your profile. You can't just build your profile and then say, I have LinkedIn. You have to actively follow people, engage, post, and that's how you can have a healthy, active LinkedIn and build onto that network.
I
Reach
email-
out
Oh,
to
sorry.
your, reach out to, especially if you work in a library already. I know some people don't, or in their field of study. Me, like I said, I've worked in the library for a while, so I reached out to other librarians in academic libraries that I could, you know, talk to, discuss things with, get their point of view. Normally where I wouldn't reach out to them unless it had something directly to do with work, and that benefited me a lot.
What were you going to say, David?
Yeah, I'm not great at networking, I guess, right? Like with between all the other stuff going on, I haven't been able to take advantage of a lot of the cool stuff going on through VSU. But what I do is I email people, and I know that's kind of old school, right? But when I see someone has something interesting to say on a discussion board, sometime you know, it's like, hey, let's continue this conversation. And I, again, I don't know how everybody's schedule works out. I go every semester. I find in summer the classes seem to be a little smaller. I seem to have a little bit more opportunity to directly interact with folks, and that's helped as well. I think some of the people that I've maybe worked the closest with have been in some of those smaller summer classes.
I would like to add too is I know we can become creatures of habit too, and Cordell was on here. Take those opportunities and even though it's an online, get on the AGs, participate as much as you can. I understand y'all have families and jobs, and you know you're sleep, or do I study, or do I hang with the family? There's a lot of choices you've got to make when kind of doing these paths, but sometimes making that weird sacrifice or something pays off. You don't know. I mean, we live, particularly when you start getting in the world, is like that 6 degrees of separation is really true. Like you don't know who your professors know. So please use your professors as a resource. I mean, that's how a lot of us ended up going to grad school and making those connections and how we get jobs. And I would also like too is like, I think Dr. Cruz mentioned it earlier, is like, there's money for grad students to go to conferences to help pay for some of that thing. So avail yourself for the face-to-face, or even I mean, as conferences are going from virtual back to face-to-face, at least some of the ones I've gone to, you know, avail yourself to go to those conferences. That's where you start connecting a face with a name, and again, that's what leads to jobs and other opportunities, or maybe doing research with other people, because that's led to me to some publishing opportunities, and also just meeting some really cool people where I get to tell a story about my friend John, who lost all his, you know, his dissertation. I'm moving from Penn State to wherever he was going at the time. So think about those opportunities, and I think programs for the most part are pretty good about letting you know, it's like, hey, this conference happening, whether it's a state, a regional, or a national type conferences. Those things do pay off in spades in the long run there. Does anybody from the in the audience there have a question you'd like to ask?
It's kind of a backtrack question, but
Sure.
everybody mentioned the APA manual. I would just like to know the panel's, I guess, kind of get is what would be a top tip for APA from all you guys, like something that you use almost daily.
Citations.
Exactly. If you want to learn anything from APA, learn how to cite both references and the in-text citations. That's one of the biggest pieces. Another thing is everything is in APA. If you want to use a table, it has an APA format. If you want to cite where that a picture, it has an APA format. The margins has an APA format. Like there's nothing that you're going to do within Microsoft Word or whatever word processing system you use to write that APA style paper or whatever. That's not, you know, but I will say those citations is the biggest things. If you can get that down, everything else is a little easy to remember, right? It's kind of somewhat easier to remember, like 1-inch margins and, those type of things. But if you can really nail down the type of citation you have and how to cite it properly, you're golden, because that's one of the biggest, to me, that was one of the biggest challenges, was learning how to cite, because the way you cite a scholarly article is not the way you cite a textbook, but trying to remember like how to do that. And so if you can really get those down, like Dr. Nelson said, that was the first thing that came to my mind was citations. That's probably the biggest thing I can tell you to get out of that APA manual. But everything's important, but definitely the citations.
I would like to jump in and add, if you learn APA and then you got to go, oh shoot, I got to do MLA, it's easy because like MLA has some stuff. I'm like, shoot, I don't have to do this. And it's just almost become secondary. Or if you have to jump into the world of Turabian or Chicago, which is even super weirder and sometimes even more complex, you've got that basis to know, okay, this is what I need. You've got that foundation for citation. So being familiar with that APA, even though it may be a pain to go from some other thing, you've got, enough to be dangerous.
Going back to what Phoenix said, some of your APA standard format is going to be easy, like the margins and the font, stuff like that. But with that APA manual, that's going to have everything in it. And if you're like me, my undergrad illy prepared me for writing papers, which is a must in grad program. So following that APA manual has been a lifesaver. In-text citations and citing, and like I said earlier, you're going to come upon unique, a PDF on a website versus a website that doesn't have any authors, doesn't have any date. Everything is different. So going back to that APA manual and the Owlet Purdue citation machine, and like David said, even though you use maybe citation machine, go back to your APA, because sometimes those don't do it exactly like the APA manual recommends or suggests. And the APA 7 is the current one. And like I said, I take my book with me everywhere. I don't go anywhere without that book. It's going to be the best purchase you make.
A quick question for Colette. I know you're on there. As someone asked, could you mention some professional organizations that are good to join for library media? That's a world I'm not familiar with. I mean, I am familiar with it, but I don't know what type of organizations that would be good for.
Sorry about that. I couldn't get to my microphone because my computer wants to reboot. Of course. Probably ALA School Media Association, if you want to drop me. Yep. The Public Library Association, Crystal, is PLA. What she wants is the School Libraries Group, which is not in the same program as our MLIS degree. It's actually in the College of Education. Well, we're in the College of Education now too, aren't we? Okay. It's a K-12 degree, but they are actually certified by ALA for providing the program through the university, whereas the MLIS is accredited, and we don't want to go down that route right now. But there is a sub-association within ALA for school library media. And there are also state groups that are the same. Georgia has a spectacular school library media association.
There's a comment in the comment section saying about reach out to an author and compliment them if you read some research. Has anybody on the panel like been doing some research and found an article and reached out to that person, and how was that experience, and was it beneficial? Was it, how did it help you?
I can tell you, in my case, it was the most exciting thing ever.
Yeah.
I could not believe I read this article. I sent them an email and they replied. I just thought it was amazing.
Yeah, that's happened to me too, where I've just written the author an email with a question, follow up, and they reached right back out with an answer.
you have not signed up, if you're a person who does research, I would check out ResearchGate. That is the LinkedIn for academics. So it's a place where I couldn't get a copy, and I didn't I was lazy and didn't do the interlibrary loan. I just messaged that person on ResearchGate, and they just sent me a PDF of that. And it was nice to be able to go, whoa, okay, so this is what you mean, and that's the joy of the technology right there. So reach out to these authors. I think we get nerdly excited when someone has a question about our research. I mean, we're not fill in the blank famous pop culture writer, so kind of makes us feel like rock stars a little bit to be like, oh, because we could totally nerd out on our research all day.
Well, and Samantha can also share this with you, but there are often articles that I want because of my area of research that we don't have. And we can request them through ILL and the library will get them for us. But once in a blue moon, I don't need it tomorrow. I need it now. And if you explain to an author, I'm desperate, 9 times out of 10, you'll get an email back in minutes saying, here you go.
Most definitely. Oh, what is another message on there? Sorry, I'm on the screen. Anybody else have anything you'd like to add to that on the panel? Yeah, textbooks are kind of boring. I would agree with that.
I'm going to add something. I don't know if this isn't necessarily related to the question, but since we're talking about ways to access articles, I do use Galileo, which is, provided by our institution, but I also use Google Scholar a lot. And Google Scholar, if you learn how to search for articles, like you learn how to use apostrophes and plus signs to look for groups of words and things, instead of just putting it all without any type of quotation marks or plus signs or anything like that to really refine the search, Google Scholar is very, very beneficial. They usually already have the APA. They have related articles to that article that are about similar topics, and it has access right there for the PDF. So everything is just in that one place, and it's so easy to access and even help you connect to other things. But still check Galileo because these are, journal things that the institution, has subscription or pays for and things like that that are to benefit the students. And there's tons of stuff in there as well. So Galileo and Google Scholar are great ways to find different articles or textbooks or whatever you might need.
And every single journal that you subscribe to, there's a lot of those. EBSCOhost is a great resource as well within that. Thanks for bringing that up, Phoenix. So we have reached the tail end of here, and I wanted to give you enough time to answer this last question because I think all through our journey of education, it's about growing. So, how have you grown as I say personally and intellectually since starting your program?
I'll take this one first since I'm already unmuted. I'll be very short. I feel like I've been talking a lot, just by mere nature that I like to talk, y'all. So I do apologize. But the biggest way I've grown is that one of the biggest reasons I went and pursued a doctoral degree was for me to be able to leverage the experience that I have based off being a younger professional, if you will, and being able to compete for those leadership roles with using my education and knowledge base as a credential that I otherwise wouldn't be able to go after those types of leadership opportunities by just having my bachelor's or master's degree and the experience I do have. So by getting to ABD status, I've been able to put myself in rooms to pitch myself for certain opportunities that I otherwise would not have if I didn't have basically my 10 years of education as a strong foundational credential of why I'm saying that I'm fit for this role or whatever the case may be. So that's how I'll say I have grown the most because it's allowed me access to opportunities that if I did not have a doctoral degree or be ABD status rather, I probably would not have that option to go that route.
This may sound a little bit silly and maybe not make me come off as good in front of all these folks who are just starting the journey, but the biggest area where I've grown is I actually think I'm going to do this now. I think when I started the program, I'm coming from a different situation working for the university system. I don't have to pay tuition. So this was kind of like, I'll start with a class. I'll see how it goes. And now I've gotten to the point where I really believe I'm going to make it. I'm a lot more invested. I kind of took a small bite approach at the beginning, but when I really let myself look at the big picture and what I could accomplish if I really went all in, that's when I felt momentum really start. And so that's been a big area of growth. I also think, and you will all find that I've grown tremendously as a writer. Again, I started off feeling like a pretty good writer, but it's like anything you practice, the more you practice, the better you're going to get. And I think that that's been very gratifying to see.
I guess I have grown, I agree with David a lot as a writer, particularly in 8300 when Dr. Miller said that academic writing does not have to be so dry and boring that it could like kill grass or something. I don't remember her exact words, but that was a light bulb moment for me. But also just growing in my knowledge of writing and rhetoric and linguistics and all of these tools that I can take and apply to my actual job teaching students and just feel more knowledgeable and confident in what I'm doing, because I am still a relatively young teacher, relatively new, but it has given me a lot more confidence to approach, especially teaching writing, which has always been a weakness for me, like it's something that I know how to do.
Yolanda?
It's helped with my writing, like the others have spoken about, improving each time I have to write a new paper, but it's built my confidence in being able to speak up with ideas that I thought may not have been, the greatest ideas. But when I start looking at some of the other students' assignments, their posts, their discussions, not assignments, I apologize, their discussion posts, and I realize some of my ideas that I've been harboring back have actually worked at other institutions or other library facilities. It's built my confidence in going to my director and my supervisor and saying, hey, let's take a look at doing things this way, or giving suggestions, because I have, not only do I have my original idea, but I have backup. This has worked for this library, this has worked for this situation. So it's really built my confidence, and across the campus as a whole with faculty. Just talking with some of them through, walking in the courtyard or whatever, and they ask me how school's going. It's almost put me on a little bit different of a level with them, where before they really wouldn't, it's not that they wouldn't talk to me, but they wouldn't invite me to certain things because I was just standard in my position. So to me, it's building me up in a level that they trust my opinion. They want to hear my opinion. I've been invited to attend certain things that I normally wouldn't have been, invited to attend. So to me, it's an overall confidence builder and experience builder.
I want to thank all the panelists, Pam, Phoenix, David, Yolanda, for taking the time out of your busy schedules on this. I would like to add anybody out there that's been watching this, thank you for taking time, and hopefully you found this helpful in some form or fashion. I'm going to put our panelists on the spot, but if you have questions, please feel to reach out to these people. I think the exciting part is you want to see everybody successful in the cliche, a rising tide lifts all ships. And I definitely believe that, as I've been lucky in my graduate experiences to be lifted up by not only faculty, but my peers who I still have relationships and do work with at conferences and research and publications. So I just keep that in mind and reach out to Dr. DeCruz or Colette or Gwen right there. We're all here to help you on that one. And I would just kind of to end on this one note is make sure you take time for yourself also. It can get really super hectic, and particular Phoenix, this is in the dissertation process is all but done. There's gonna be times you're gonna be cursing your advisor and they're gonna be cursing you. Give yourself time. give yourself a breathe, take whatever your hobby is, or go for a walk, or, because it can be overwhelming a lot of times. And the goals, the best advice we got from our department chair is the best dissertation's a finished one. So give yourself that time, and be patient with yourself, and give yourself the grace that you need to be successful. So kind of want to end on that note. So thank you so much, everybody. I truly appreciate it. And
David, I just want to mention that there is a feedback form. The link is in the chat room, so if you can
Okay.
mention that. Yeah.
yes, as what she just said, the link in the feedback form is right there if you've seen it. And, make sure you take time and maybe join AGS and be a part of the group me. If anything, that would be another way of connecting with students here online. So the feedback line. All right, cool. It's right there. Everybody sees that. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Everybody have a great day.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
I enjoyed it. Thanks.